Moving on up. Welcome to the channel. We're doing 80s relics, which turns my stomach. If I had to force myself to listen to this stuff at the time, I was listening to what everyone was listening to, like Replacements, Devo, Talking Heads. None of that stuff holds up for me anymore. Except for maybe The Fall and the Raincoats, maybe Wire. So that's what I was going for, something a little off center. When I was in visiting London, I was listening to the John Peel show, and I heard one of these alternative post punk bands, or a couple actually. I picked two that I think hold up today.
All right. Well, I don't know if what I picked holds up, but I think it does. One of them actually is one of the bands that you just mentioned, Jackson. The other one is pretty obscure, um, but
Well,
it's from the 80s and bears the sonic imprint of that decade unmistakably.
All right. As for me, I picked two things, one of which is a stone cold classic. Not hard to find, but not really talked about a whole lot anymore. And the other is a somewhat lesser known, unheralded part of this band's catalog, but which I think is great. So the first record I picked is Discharge's Warning. Her Majesty's government can seriously damage your health. And it's from 1983. You can see, if you were wondering, if you had any doubts about who they were talking about, they helpfully provided this line drawing of Maggie Thatcher with a butcher's knife, also a reaper through the window. So get the picture. This is kind of a transitional record from Discharge, who maybe more than any other hardcore punk band, are sort of a classic riches to rags story. They put out a couple of albums prior to this that are among, the greatest hardcore records ever released, were enormously influential. Um, Discharge spawned its own subgenre of hardcore called D-beat. And then, sort of mystifyingly, they went hair metal. But this was a record in between. They had some new band members. Um, this record is more metal. It's a bit slower. It's riffier. It's more rockin'. Um, it's definitely more groove based, there's more solos, but it's still, a very punk record. If their previous stuff was kind of a sensory assault, like a wall of noise or sound, this goes down easier. These songs are catchier. It's good stuff. My second record is Follow the Leader by Eric B. and Rakim. Uh, so This was their second LP, this duo of MC and DJ from 1988. Fair to call them the greatest hip hop duo of the 80s and maybe ever. They'd be in the conversation, certainly. And Rakim, the MC, I think it's not crazy to say that he's the best there ever was. Or this is pretty close to their peak, I would say. Rakim's style, his voice was low and, a little bit of melody in there, but just ice cold, and supremely smooth. His lyricism was, you sometimes you'll hear hip hop, especially older hip hop, compared to poetry. And if you were to transcribe these lyrics, it makes perfect sense. Like mechanically, there's end jams and internal rhymes and alliteration and anaphora, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a masterclass. It's all there. And Rakim doesn't shout. Or doesn't, laugh. His delivery is just, fine tuned to the needs of the line. It's really impressive. Um, his DJ, Eric B, crafts these hypnotic beats. The samples are pretty simple. All of this is, it ends up being, it's pretty minimalist. Um, and it's also very intense. So the result is, it's austere. This is like a seamless, a lethal weapon. And the first three songs on this record, um, are like a one, two, three punch of greatness. Like this is an illustration of just how amazing hip hop can be, or at least was. So
Well, Jackson mentioned them, and he's showcased them before, but you can't do it often enough. The Fall, Marky Smith. We've got this kind of sustained ranting by Mr. Marky Smith, the real linchpin of the operation, um, over the course of, well, track after track here, and then album after album and decade after decade. He left this, shuffled off this mortal coil about 7 years ago, I guess now. There's really nobody like him vocally, although free-flowing stream of consciousness rants, fueled by copious amounts of alcohol and amphetamines, over this really ramshackle music. This is a great record. More to the point, it's the third one by the band. It's from 1980, Grotesque. And Grotesque is an apt name for what you hear, because it's this kind of dystopian vision of a world that you didn't think could get any worse than it was. Here we have Thatcher's England, and this is punk without the screaming and snarling. Well, without the screaming, but with the snarling, I guess. Really, anything they did is worth checking out. But from this early period, this is a standout, I think. Yeah, The Fall is a great band, and this is a great record. Item number two goes across the channel to France. It is the unpronounceable Ptose, which is a band that kind of can be likened, or there has been likened, I think, not incorrectly, to the French Residents. Uh, that's so if you want like weird voices and sort of creepy little melodies and this kind of sort of dark obsession with sort of creeping and crawling cuteness of one sort or another. It's kind of got this slightly uh, precious quality, but with a sinister bent. And it's called Ignoble Limace, which, if I'm not mistaken, is well, which is a good reference to the kind of sort of fungal and slug-like sounds, the reptilian kind of creeping and crawling that I mentioned before. This album also has fabulous cover artwork by the U.S. Artist Mark Bayer, or Bayer, I don't really know how he pronounces it, but he did album artwork for everyone from Monte Casaza and Snakefinger to later John Zorn, and artists of these kind of constricted and claustrophobic spaces. And that's a visual representation of what you get sonically on this record. So, 1984, Ptose, Ignoble Limace, The French Residents, creepy, crawly, sort of the sound of formication with an M, right? The sensation of lots of teeming microorganisms. That's my second choice. Jackson.
Wow. Well, I have felt, and was inevitable. I think I have almost every felt record. This is The Strange Idols Pattern and Other Short Stories. It's on Cherry Red from 1984, and is masterminded by a guy that goes simply by Lawrence, who had this concept that he would have Felt do 10 records, 10 full LPs in 10 years. And he pretty much stuck to that, as well as a lot of EPs. So very collectible, but most of the Felt records have now been reissued. These are three-chord songs, but of quality as far as composition. Each one is novel. They seem to be about real life and ring as true. The vocals are, I guess, the biggest inspiration would be Lou Reed in that everything is well thought out, the phrasing, but it is delivered with an indifference. So he's got his own variation of indifferent vocals. It's about romantic encounters and weird things that women in his life might do, buying drugs. Anyway, but the music itself is built from chiming guitars with lots of talented sidemen that really hold this together. It's not maybe unlike the Smiths, but it's deeper and certainly less perky. And this has some great songs on it. It's got Spanish House, Sunlight Bathe, The Golden Glow. These are classic Felt numbers. So it's really about the mood that Felt create. There are instrumental songs and vocal songs, and the guitars are the real standout. In this case, they are provided by Maurice D. Bank, who adds a pointed, meandering beauty. He's also got a solo record that is all instrumental and wonderful as well. So, Lawrence went on to make Denim and Mozart Go Kart, and there was actually a documentary film about him called Lawrence of Belgravia, which you should check out to see Lawrence in his worn glory. And I have a whole felt section, so that's where I keep this. Also, very quirky Shonen Knife Burning Farm from 1983. Uh, this is their second record, and in my mind, the most unaffected, the most natural. It's almost as if they hadn't really arrived at what they wanted to be, which actually this is better than what they became. So it's got lots of influences. I think it is one of my favorite post-punk LPs. Um, it's a Japanese trio that has a certain amount of naivete, but rock in a non-Western sort of way. So it could be described as fast twee with a little bit of 60s girl groups or yee yee pop from the French. But it's also got Ramones power chords, a little bit of dub, and a little bit of slit styled ska rhythms, maybe a little no wave, but it's all sort of combined in this new hybrid that makes it really original. So overall, it is minimal, fractured, off kilter, and unorthodox. And of course, that's why I like it. And Kurt Cobain cited it as one of his favorite records. It's got like some really funny songs like Elephant Popo, Banana Fish, but all the songs are good. And I have a section for 80s post-punk. There they are, the three Japanese rockin' girls. We're just killing time. Old Joe Stromer is a burnt killing bummer, not a bird killer, but a bummer.
Do you take on a raccoon?
Or a possum.
No, that really applies exclusively to the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, but that was like an inside joke. They were friends with Neil Young. Friends with Neil Young. Friends with Neil Young. Micro tuned for individual listeners. Like everything is cool and everything is not cool at the same time now.